John Lee talks about his work ahead of the second anniversary of his term. Police Commissioner Raymond Siu says CCTV is already helping solve crimes. And the first of ICAC's recruitment experience days. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. Chief Executive John Lee will soon reach the second anniversary of his tenure as the city's leader. In a review of his work, Lee said many of his goals as CE have already been achieved, while stressing that all of the city's principal officials have met his requirements and that he has no intention of replacing any of them. The chief executive noted he will continue to focus on boosting Hong Kong's economy and urged different sectors to adapt to the times. Having served as the city's chief executive for close to 2 years, how many goals from his election manifesto have been accomplished? The CE noted care teams have been established in all of the city's 18 districts, as well as the implementation of primary health care and the construction of light public housing. As for the performance of the city's top officials, the CE stressed his confidence in their abilities and that they have fulfilled his requirements. Lee said he considers factors such as whether policies are correct, the speed of their implementation, and teamwork, adding that he does not see a need to replace the officials. And just 1.5 years into Lee's term as the city's leader, Hong Kong completed the Article 23 legislation. The CE likened the national security law to a vaccine. He said even though the law helps to protect the city against viruses, society should remain cautious of espionage activities conducted by foreign governments.
I will be telling the governments and also the politicians, particularly those who try to gain politically to do things that interfere with the Hong Kong affair, is that don't try to make use of Hong Kong as your political tool. It will not work, and it will also backfire. They have tried to do that before 2019, and they have failed.
The chief executive also responded to the resignation of 2 foreign judges from the city's highest court after the sentencing of several political activists following national security trials. A judge said his resignation was because of the political situation in the SAR and openly criticized the basic law. Lee reiterated the city's strong judicial spirit and his trust in its legal system. Regarding his plans for the future, the CE said he will focus on boosting the city's economy and urged different sectors to speed up in adapting to the times. A woman died after sustaining head injuries in Fanling. She was suspected to have had a fight with a boyfriend. Police received reports at around 5:30 p.m. of a man allegedly engaged in a fight with his 56-year-old girlfriend in their flat in Wamin House in Wassam Estate. She was confirmed dead with head injuries when authorities arrived. Police Commissioner Raymond Siu said 6 cases have been solved thanks to 15 CCTV cameras installed in Mongkok. He stressed the force will strengthen its intelligence work to ensure a smooth handover anniversary celebration on July 1st. Siu also spoke at the passing out parade held at the Hong Kong Police College. At a passing out ceremony at the Hong Kong Police College on Saturday morning, Police Commissioner Raymond Siu congratulated 21 probationary inspectors and 157 officers. Siu said the participation rate at this month's Police Recruitment Experience and Assessment Day was the 2nd highest on record, adding that it is becoming increasingly popular among youngsters to join the force. This as in just more than a week, Hong Kong will celebrate the 27th anniversary of its return to the motherland. Siu said the police will strengthen their intelligence work to ensure that there will be enough manpower, ensuring smooth and safe celebrations on the 1st of July. While he noted society has largely returned to a state of peace, he emphasized authorities will still take swift action to deal with those committing seditious acts or causing disturbance to the public. He called upon residents to report to the police if they encounter possible national security offenses. Meanwhile, the police commissioner said they are speeding up the installation of some 2,000 CCTV cameras across the city, with the first batch of 15 cameras having already been set up in Mongkok. Siu said 6 cases, including the ownership of imitation firearms, robberies, and bomb threats, were solved thanks to the cameras. He hopes the installation of more cameras would raise the effectiveness of the fight against crime. Regarding recently released crime figures in the SAR, Siu noted while there has been a slight decline in cases, incidents of phone scammers posing as mainland authorities are on the rise. He urged residents to stay vigilant. 8 people were found guilty of rioting in Yamate during the Polytechnic University protests in 2019. They received prison sentences ranging from 37 to 50 months. During the 2019 protest, a group of people occupied the Polytechnic University. Some took part in rioting in Yamate, hoping to distract police. Police later arrested 213 people in the incident. The prosecution separated the defendants into 17 cases. The 8 people convicted are aged between 22 and 30. Crashes involving 10 vehicles on the Lantau link near midday caused major traffic congestion for motorists traveling to the airport. There are reports of injured passengers. Vehicles ranging from private cars to taxis and trucks suffered damage from the incident. Glass could be seen strewn across the road. The crashes happened at around 12 p.m. when the vehicles rammed into each other on the airport-bound section of the Tingma Bridge. Parts of the Lantau link were cordoned off, which led to traffic congestion extending to Kamchuk-Kok on the Tingma Highway. The road was reopened to the public at 1 p.m. The Independent Commission Against Corruption is holding 2 recruitment experience days. The ICAC are expecting about 1,000 people. The second recruitment day is scheduled next week. Most Nai reports.
The lecture hall at the ICAC headquarters building at North Point was packed with people early Saturday morning. They were all there for the same purpose, to attend the ICAC Recruitment Experience Day. After the lecture, some active role-playing for individuals to gain a better understanding of the job of an investigator from the operations department. This scene shows how an investigator and assistant investigator arrest a suspect in an operation. Actors demonstrated the standard procedures they must perform during an arrest. For instance, the investigator must place her foot next to the suspects. If the latter moves, the former will know instantly. While this is a weapon search, does this room setting look familiar? It is a video conference room where investigators will meet and talk with suspects. Individuals were also invited to role-play as an investigator to meet with a suspect. A script was provided for the person to follow. Meanwhile, to become part of the operations department, individuals must have good physical ability. The ICAC said nearly 90% of people registered to do the physical test on the recruitment experience days.
Because for this kind of physical fitness requirement, because we are law enforcement agents, and in some conditions we may need to use some force applied on the suspects. There are 4 sessions. The first one is the grip test. The grip test is to test your physical fitness of the muscles in your upper body. The second one is the 1-minute push-up test. Another 1-minute sit-up test. You need to do the sit-up. And finally is the 15 meters run.
Passing the physical test is a key component for candidates to join the operations department. The ICAC said they aim to recruit 30 investigators and assistant investigators through the 2 recruitment days. This law student said the experience day was fruitful.
I just finished my year 2 study, so that's still quite a long time for me to explore different fields, different career fields. So besides the legal field, I would also like to explore something different, for example, like ICAC, and because it is in the government system.
This man took part in the physical test and said he could have done better.
I think it's a really good opportunity for us to know about the daily works about ICAC, and since the daily operation of ICAC is actually quite confidential.
News 9, TVB News.
Germany's Vice Chancellor Robert Habeck is visiting China. During his meeting with a senior Chinese official, he was told the European Union is practicing trade protectionism by its plan to increase tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles. Zheng Shanjie, head of the National Development and Reform Commission, met with Habeck in Beijing today. It was the first high-level dialogue between China and Germany on a cooperation mechanism for climate change and green transition. Zheng said that increasing tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles is detrimental to both sides in the long run and will harm its own interests. He said the tariffs will not only affect EU consumers, but severely impact the long-term healthy development of the European automotive industry. There are reports that China could impose heavy tariffs on European vehicles, which would impact Germany seriously. Still ahead, Vladimir Putin says Russia has plans to further develop its nuclear weapons. Fatal shooting in Arkansas in the United States. And U.S. Supreme Court makes major ruling about gun ownership. Welcome back. Russian President Vladimir Putin said Russia has plans to further develop its nuclear weapons. Speaking to graduates of military and law enforcement schools in Moscow, he also said he is also ready to discuss security issues with NATO member countries. Nasvi Karim has more.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is back home, having just returned from his two-nation trip to North Korea and Vietnam. Isolated by the West over his war with Ukraine, Putin showed that he still wields influence elsewhere. The highlight of his visit was the security treaty he signed with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un. The deal obligates Russia and North Korea to help each other if one of the countries is attacked. The United States and South Korea expressed concern about the treaty, which adds a new dynamic to Korean Peninsula tensions. In Moscow, Putin spoke before graduates of military and law enforcement schools in the Russian capital. He repeated an earlier peace offer for Ukraine, saying he was willing to talk to NATO members about security issues when they are ready. Ukraine, the United States and many European countries last week rejected Putin's terms for peace, in which he wanted Kiev to withdraw its forces from areas annexed by Russia and for Ukraine to abandon plans to join NATO. Putin also said Moscow's plans include further development of the nuclear triad as a guarantee of strategic deterrence and maintaining the balance of power in the world. The nuclear triad is a three-pronged military force structure of land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, and strategic bombers and nuclear bombs and missiles. Meanwhile, United Nations Secretary-General Antonio Guterres reminded Putin and other countries that any agreement with North Korea must abide by Security Council-approved sanctions.
There are sanctions approved by the Security Council in relation to the DPRK. Any relationship of any country with DPRK, including the Russian Federation, must entirely abide by those sanctions.
The Security Council meets on Friday to discuss possible violations by North Korea related to weapons transfers. While in Vietnam, Putin warned South Korea against supplying weapons to Ukraine, saying it would be a big mistake. Seoul said it would consider arming Kiev in response to the Russia-North Korea Defense Pact. Nasvi Karim, TVB News.
Nigel Farage, leader of Britain's Reform Party, said Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 was provoked by NATO and European Union expansionism. Reform is third in most opinion polls ahead of July 4th general election, but we're second at least one poll. Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022, with President Vladimir Putin saying he was protecting Russian-speaking areas in the east and combating NATO expansionist plans.
I stood up in the European Parliament in 2014 and I said, and I quote, "There will be a war in Ukraine." Why did I say that? It was obvious to me that the ever eastward expansion of NATO and the European Union was giving this man a reason to his Russian people to say they're coming for us again and to go to war.
Normal life in an American town has been shattered by a tragic mass shooting. In Fordyce in the state of Arkansas, 3 were killed as 13 people were shot when a gunman opened fire at a grocery store. Among the wounded are 2 law enforcement officers. The suspect was struck in a shootout with police, is alive and in custody. David Garrett reports.
57-year-old David Rodriguez stopped for gas as usual on a Friday ahead of the weekend. An hour's drive from Little Rock in Fordyce. He hears pops. He thought it was fireworks coming from the grocery store. That was when Mr. Rodriguez started filming. He speaks over his video saying someone is lying on the tarmac of the parking lot, shot. People yell at him to get back. Rodriguez was unharmed, but some are dead and others critical. The witness says police arrived quickly.
At approximately 11:38, 911 calls were received that there was an active shooting situation at the Mad Butcher grocery store in Fordyce. Law enforcement responded immediately and exchanged gunfire with a lone suspect.
2 officers were injured in the shootout. The suspect, now in custody, was wounded. His injuries are not life-threatening. The investigation is ongoing. Reports say a 23-year-old nurse is dead. She was shopping on her day off and leaves behind a 10-month-old baby.
It's tragic. Our hearts are broken. Our prayers, along with Governor Sanders, the entire state of Arkansas, will be with this community and with those affected victims.
It is unclear whether the gunfire was inside or just outside the Mad Butcher. The governor quickly offered prayers to the victims on social media. A nearby store displayed "Pray for Fordyce," with the incident still ongoing.
For this to happen, this is just something crazy to all of us, and I really pray for the families and the officer, anybody who just lost their life today, for something that shouldn't really happen. Situations like that, you don't know what to do. And it's like, how can we prepare ourselves for something like this and we don't know what to do?
The US has had more than 230 mass shootings this year, with at least 9 across the nation this week. David Garrett, TVB News.
As another mass shooting took place, the U.S. Supreme Court made a major decision on gun ownership. The court upheld a federal law which bans domestic abusers from having them. The ruling was 8-1. The court found that issuing domestic abusers with a restraining order barring them from owning a gun is consistent with the Second Amendment. The case was brought by a convict in Texas in 2020. He was ordered to stay away from his girlfriend and told he could not buy a firearm after assaulting her and threatening to shoot her. One judge said that a woman who lives with an abuser is 5 times more likely to be murdered if the abuser has access to a gun. Clarence Thomas was the only justice to vote against it, saying it infringes people's rights under the Second Amendment. Tajikistan will take possession of a new parliament building funded and built by China by the end of June. The chief engineer of the project said the expected lifespan of this Chinese-funded and built project is a century because it's being built in accordance with Chinese standards. Zakir Ib was at the construction site in Tajikistan.
A blue dome more than 70 meters high scrapes the sky. Islamic-style carvings adorn the walls. This is Tajikistan's new parliament house, soon to be opened in the country's capital, Dushanbe. It is one of 2 buildings funded and built by China at a cost of around 820 million yuan. Inside the 43,000 square meter structure, one of the biggest challenges is building a conference hall that can accommodate 1,500 people. Zhang Zhigang, the project's chief engineer, said the conference hall's width is around 40 or 50 meters, and it requires strong structural design and technique to support the dome. It is a marked difference from Chinese buildings with lower ceilings. This is the Deputy Speaker's office. The Soviet-style room is made of Russian oak, which offers better resistance to temperature differences. Traditional wood carvings are handled by local carpenters. Works such as gilt decoration, which required a skillful hand, are left to women. Built using Chinese construction technology and safety standards, the expected lifespan of the building is a century. Zhang said the team put in plenty of steel bars in the columns while building the main structure. It is higher than local standards. 90% or more of the building materials were imported from China. The logistic cost was doubled or tripled owing to the pandemic. Zhang said the project enabled the training of more than 2,000 local laborers over the past 4 years, but it has mainly relied on Chinese workers with advanced skills.
There were around 400 Chinese construction workers working on this site when it was kicked off in 2020. Since March this year, the company has doubled the number of Chinese workers as they aim at complete the whole project by late June this year. Zakaria, TVB News, Dushanbe.
A relentless heat wave continued to bake North and Central America, while some European countries are also expecting extremely hot weather over the coming days. In Mexico, people are trying to keep cool as temperatures rise. In Ohio, they are taking to kayaking, and Greeks are jumping into the ocean. The United States is expecting temperatures to rise to almost 38 degrees Celsius in parts of Ohio and Indiana. Romania is expecting higher than usual temperatures this weekend, with meteorologists saying they could soar to 40 degrees Celsius. A red alert indicating extreme heat was issued for the southern part of the country, including the capital, Bucharest, where people sunbathed in parks and cooled off near lakes. And that's the news. Thanks for watching.